The glass walls of Victor Crane's office offered no privacy. I felt the weight of dozens of eyes from the analytics floor upon me. My team, the people I had mentored, were now silent witnesses to my execution. Victor stood before me, his voice a cold, sharp instrument. Let's be perfectly clear, Amara. The data does not lie. You are, and always have been, mediocre. Your work is replaceable. You lack the fundamental instincts for leadership in a company of this caliber. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I had just delivered the project that saved our most valuable client from leaving. Sir, I began, my voice quieter than I wanted. The quarterly report shows a 20% growth in the client's engagement directly because of my team's strategy. He cut me off with a short, dismissive laugh. Reports can be spun. Your instincts, however, cannot be faked. They are weak. You're fired. Security will escort you to clean out your desk. I stood frozen, my professional pride dissolving into dust. He leaned in, his breath a whisper meant only for me, yet it echoed in the silent room. Remember this moment. Women like you, with more ambition than talent, don't make it far in this business. I walked out on trembling legs, the heat of shame burning my cheeks. Just outside the glass door, I paused, hearing his booming laugh as he clinked glasses with an investor. Dead weight, he announced cheerfully. Finally cut it loose. The company can breathe again. The walk back to my desk was a silent, humiliating parade. My co-workers, people I had shared lunches and laughs with, were now statues, their eyes glued to their monitors in a collective act of self-preservation. I opened a drawer, my hands shaking as I placed my meager personal items into a cardboard box, a framed photo of my sister and me, my favorite fountain pen. Then, Evan from the coding team was suddenly beside me, his face a mask of anger. Amara, this is insane. I'm going to talk to him right now. This isn't right. I grabbed his arm, my grip tight. Don't, Evan. He'll just fire you, too. It's not worth it. His eyes, usually so calm, were filled with a fire I'd never seen. As I slowly packed, Evan's gaze drifted back towards Victor's office. Victor was at his computer, his back to the glass wall. Evan's eyes widened in realization. Amara, he's in the internal performance database. He's altering your records right now. He's inputting false negative reviews. My breath hitched. That was the proof, the evidence of his sabotage. But as Evan subtly raised his phone to take a picture through the glass, Victor turned. He saw us. His smirk was instantaneous. He slammed his laptop shut. By the time I reached my apartment, the file had been permanently deleted from the server, wiped clean without a trace. The lock on my apartment door clicked shut, and the last of my composure broke. I slid to the floor, the box of my former life tipping over, spilling its contents. Sobs racked my body, tears of pure anger and humiliation. My older sister, Zara, found me there an hour later. She didn't offer empty comfort. She made strong, sweet tea and sat on the floor beside me. He broke you down, she stated, her voice firm. Now, you have to decide if you'll let him keep you there, or if you'll use the pieces to build something new. I shook my head, wiping my tears. Zara, you don't understand. He has all the power, all the money, all the connections. Her face grew dark, a storm of old memories clouding her features. I understand more than you know. Victor Crane, he was the angel investor I pitched my logistics startup to 5 years ago. He didn't just steal the idea, he leaked false information that I had faked the data. He destroyed my reputation so thoroughly that no one in this city would take my calls for 2 years. I stared at her, the pieces of a horrifying pattern clicking into place. This wasn't personal. It was his strategy. He identified talent he couldn't control, and he systematically crushed it. A cold, hard determination began to crystallize, replacing the shattered fragments of my despair. My phone buzzed with an encrypted message. It was from Evan. He scrubbed the main server, but I saved a local copy of the client contact list before I left. Cross-referenced it with the complaint log. These people left because of him. They all liked you, *. The list was long and revealing. One name stood out, Leila Mbeki, a sharp and principled investor from South Africa. I remembered her well. She had personally commended my work on her company's complex account. With a deep, steadying breath, I composed a careful, professional email. To my shock, she replied within the hour. She remembered me vividly and was furious to hear of my firing. She offered a meeting for the very next day. A fragile spark of hope, a feeling I thought was extinguished, flickered to life inside me. That night, as I was reviewing my notes, my personal phone rang. A number I knew too well. Victor's voice was smooth, almost conversational, but the threat beneath was unmistakable. I hear you're making calls, Amara. Networking. A word of advice from someone who knows this industry. Stay in your lane. Stop reaching for things that aren't meant for you. Or I promise, you will regret it. The line went dead, leaving a chilling silence in its wake. I met Leila Mbeki in a sunlit, quiet cafe. She listened with intense focus as I laid out my idea for a new, intuitive analytics platform, one that used a proprietary algorithm to predict market shifts with stunning accuracy. This is brilliant work, Amara. But I have to say, it feels familiar, she said, her eyes narrowing in thought. I took a steadying breath and confessed. It's the core concept I presented to Victor 2 years ago. He told me it was impractical, a waste of resources. Then, just 6 months later, Crane Tech launched Synapse, a similar but far less efficient version. Leila's hand came down on the table with a soft thud. He stole it. That thieving snake. She leaned forward, her expression turning fiercely determined. I will give you the seed funding. But you have 2 weeks. Not a day more. Build me a working, polished prototype. Show me this is truly yours, and that it's better than his pale imitation. I agreed, my hands trembling not with fear, but with a long-forgotten excitement. This was my chance. I wasn't just starting a new company, I was reclaiming my stolen legacy. The war for my future had officially begun. I knew I couldn't build an empire alone. My first calls were to Ben and Sophia, 2 brilliant former Crane Tech employees Victor had pushed out months before me. Ben was a data architect with a quiet genius, and Sophia was a UX designer who understood users like no one else. They agreed to join me without a moment's hesitation. We transformed my apartment's living room into a chaotic war room, whiteboards covered in code and designs, empty coffee cups littering every surface. A few days into our frantic work, my doorbell rang. It was Evan, standing there with a box of his belongings in his arms. I quit, he said simply, a grim smile on his face. I walked into his office and told him exactly what I thought of him and his corrupt little empire. He threatened to blacklist me from the entire industry. I don't care. I'm in. Where do I plug in my laptop? Our small team was now complete, a rebellion forged in the fire of shared injustice. Later that week, I got a text from a friend still trapped at Crane Tech. Something's up. Victor is in a rage. 4 mid-level engineers resigned today. He's screaming that you're poaching his staff and that you'll pay for it, *. The 2-week deadline arrived. We stood in Leila's sleek boardroom, the prototype loaded on the large screen. My heart was a drum in my chest. The software booted up perfectly, the interface smooth and responsive. I began the demonstration, clicking through the features with growing confidence, explaining the elegant logic behind the code. Then, halfway through a key data visualization, the entire screen froze. A cascade of red error messages flashed, one after another, and with a final, pathetic flicker, the program crashed completely. The room fell into a thick, awkward silence. Leila's associates exchanged doubtful looks. My face burned with a humiliation so intense I felt dizzy. We had tested it relentlessly, this was no random glitch. This was deliberate, sophisticated sabotage. Someone had planted a hidden bug designed to trigger at this specific, critical moment. Back at the apartment, we combed through the code. The breach was deep, embedded in a core module. The only person who had full, unsupervised access to that specific section of code besides me was Evan. I looked at him across the room, my heart sinking into a cold, dark place. Had my first and most loyal defender been the traitor all along? Evan, we need to talk. Now. I closed the door to my bedroom, my voice trembling despite my best efforts. The sabotage code was inserted into the core analytics module. Your module. You were the only one with full access. He looked utterly horrified, his face draining of color. Amara, I swear on everything I love, I would never do that. I gave up my career, my stability, for this. For your vision. He frantically showed me his laptop, his message histories, his location data, even a receipt from a coffee shop. He had a solid alibi. He was across town at a supplier meeting during the precise time window the code was altered. Then, Sophia called out from her desk, I found something. An access log, an email was sent to our development server with a spoofed digital signature that mimics Evan's. But the metadata was our saving grace. The timestamp and location data proved it was sent from a terminal Evan wasn't physically near. Someone isn't just trying to ruin us, Ben said, his face grim. They're trying to make us destroy ourselves from the inside out. We pooled our remaining funds to hire a stoic, brilliant cybersecurity expert named Iris. She worked through the night, tracing the hackers' digital footprints through a maze of proxy servers. The final result made my blood run cold. The origin point, the undeniable source of the attack, was CraneTech's primary internal server. Victor wasn't just content with firing me and stealing my ideas. He was actively, maliciously trying to strangle my new company in its crib. The next morning, a formal legal document arrived by special courier. It was a cease and desist letter from CraneTech's corporate lawyers, thick with legalese. It accused Coltech of egregious theft of intellectual property and trade secrets. It demanded we immediately cease all operations, surrender all code and data, and submit to a full audit. Victor was using his vast wealth and legal muscle to crush me, to bury me under a mountain of paper and threats. For a moment, a wave of pure, undiluted panic washed over me. How could I possibly fight a giant? Instead of surrendering to the panic, I let it fuel a cold, clear anger. I called my lawyer, a fierce woman named Isabella Rossi, and we went on the offensive. We filed a formal counterclaim, presenting my old, dated notebooks, early code repositories with timestamps from years ago, and sworn statements from my team. The legal battle was now public record. A day later, I received an anonymous, encrypted email. * meet me at the Central Library. History section. I have evidence Victor has done this many times before. He has a pattern of stealing inventions and silencing their creators. * It was signed, a friend. We met amidst the dusty shelves. It was Arthur Blythe, a former CraneTech board member who had resigned quietly last year. He slipped me a small flash drive. He's a parasite, Arthur whispered, his eyes darting around nervously. He preys on the brilliant and the trusting. Be very, very careful. I felt a surge of triumphant vindication. This was the break we needed. The very next morning, a business news segment reported that Arthur Blythe had taken a sudden, indefinite leave of absence due to undisclosed health issues. He had effectively vanished from public life. We fixed the prototype, using the attempted sabotage to identify and fortify every single vulnerability. Ben had contacted a major tech blog who agreed to give our software a look. They published a piece titled, The Underdog That Outshines CraneTech, Is Coltech the Future? It featured a brutal, side-by-side comparison. Our software was demonstrably faster, more intuitive, and delivered more accurate predictions. The article went viral on tech Twitter, shared by thousands. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded with inquiries from potential clients and investors. Coltech was no longer an idea, it was a player on the map. Victor saw the attention and his response was swift and deeply hypocritical. Crane Tech announced a glossy new, female empowerment initiative, complete with a photo of Victor smiling with a few female interns, pledging to foster and promote women in leadership roles. The man who had fired me for being a woman with ambition was now using that same identity to sell his crumbling brand. The online backlash was immediate and merciless. A thick, expensive envelope arrived at our makeshift office. Inside was a formal invitation, printed on heavy cardstock. Victor Crane requested my presence at an evening of reconciliation and potential collaboration. My team begged me not to go. But my curiosity, and a desire to look him in the eye, won out. The restaurant was impossibly opulent, all crystal and dark wood. Victor was there, oozing charm, all smiles and warm handshakes. Over an absurdly expensive steak, he made his offer. "Let's end this wasteful conflict, Amara. I'm prepared to make a generous offer to buy Tech." He slid a single sheet of paper across the table. The number was so insultingly low it was almost funny. It was a hostile takeover, a move to absorb my staff, acquire my superior technology for pennies, and kill my brand. "No, thank you," I said, my voice calm and steady. His smile vanished, replaced by a cold, predatory stare that made my skin crawl. "You are making a very, very big mistake, Amara." I tried to be civilized. I tried to be generous. "Remember, you chose this path." He stood, threw his napkin on the table, and left without another word. The attack began at dawn. A coordinated series of articles hit every major business news site. They painted a devastating portrait of me, unstable, difficult to work with, prone to taking credit for others' work. The sources cited were leaked internal HR files from Crane Tech. My inbox was flooded with the evidence, faked performance reviews from years I hadn't even worked there, doctored email chains where I was rude to colleagues, and false complaints from anonymous former teammates. My phone started ringing non-stop, reporters hungry for a scandal. A journalist from a major financial outlet called, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Ms. Adebayo, do you have any comment on the allegations that you were fired for gross incompetence and that Tech is built on a foundation of stolen work and lies?" The headline of her published article was brutal, vindictive or visionary? The troubling rise of Tech as founder. I felt the ground falling out from under me, the court of public opinion turning against us. My team was in chaos around me. "We have to put out a statement." Sophia insisted, her voice tight with stress. Evan suggested we hire a PR firm to manage the fallout. I shook my head, a strange calm settling over me. I had a different idea. I contacted the host of a popular live tech talk show and asked for 5 minutes of airtime, unscripted. He was skeptical but intrigued. On the live stream, with thousands watching, I was calm. I was honest. I told my entire story, the stolen idea, the falsified records, the sabotage of our prototype, the threatening phone call. I didn't shout or cry. I simply presented the timeline, the facts, the truth. "This isn't just about me," I said, looking straight into the camera, my voice clear and strong. "This is about what happens when power is allowed to operate without ethics, without accountability." The video exploded. By morning, #IStandWithAmara was trending globally. Then, the dam broke. Other women began sharing their stories using the hashtag. Engineers, marketers, senior executives, all with eerily similar tales of Victor Crane exploiting, manipulating, and crushing them when they became a threat. The financial effect was immediate and catastrophic for Crane Tech. Their stock price went into a terrifying freefall, dropping 30% in a single day. Major investors panicked, pulling out and calling for emergency board meetings. Victor, in a desperate, televised interview, blamed a woke mob, entitled, lazy employees, and corporate espionage orchestrated by Tech. He blamed everyone and everything but himself. Meanwhile, Evan, working his old network of contacts within Crane Tech's finance department, made a stunning discovery. "Amara, you won't believe this," he said, rushing into the room, his face pale. Crane Tech is drowning. Victor has been hiding massive, unsustainable debts in a shell company. The entire operation is a house of cards. It's on the verge of complete financial collapse. The board of directors had finally seen enough. They called an emergency vote. The news broke at 5 p.m. The board had officially fired Victor Crane as CEO. But an hour later, a news alert flashed on our screen. Victor was refusing to leave the building. He had barricaded himself in his corner office, claiming the vote was illegal. My phone rang, the screen showing Layla Mbecki's name. Amara, the landscape has shifted entirely, she said, her voice crisp and businesslike. Crane Tech's valuation has plummeted to a point where a strategic acquisition is not just a fantasy, but a realistic, even brilliant, business move. I am prepared to form a full partnership with you. Together, we can acquire a controlling interest. We can save the company from his wreckage and merge its assets with Coltech's innovation. I was speechless, the phone pressed tightly to my ear. By Crane Tech? The gilded cage that had been my prison? The idea of owning the very walls that had witnessed my humiliation was overwhelming. Evan, Sophia, and Ben watched me, their faces a mixture of hope and apprehension, waiting for my reaction. The choice was a fork in the road of my life. Did I want the messy, complicated burden of revenge through ownership, or did I simply want to move on and find peace, growing my own company far away from his shadow? The weight of the decision was immense. As I wrestled with the monumental choice, a young woman from our small admin team, Chloe, asked to speak with me privately. She was visibly shaking, her eyes red from crying. It was me, she sobbed, the words tearing from her. I introduced the bug in the prototype. Victor. His personal assistant found out my mother is here undocumented. He threatened to have her deported, to have her sent back to a place she hasn't seen in 20 years, if I didn't help him sabotage you. My initial flash of anger at her betrayal instantly melted away, replaced by a cold, simmering fury at the monster who would use a family's fear as a weapon. You are safe now, Chloe, I told her firmly, holding her trembling hands. Your mother is safe. You have my word, and the full protection of this company. I promised her our best legal counsel to secure her mother's status. Her terror transformed into fierce, unshakable loyalty. He's not done, she whispered, her voice low and urgent. He knows about the buyout talks. His new plan is to hire hackers to breach our servers tonight and delete everything, every file, every line of code. Instead of just strengthening our digital walls, we decided to set a trap, a honeypot. We worked with Iris to create a fake, mirrored server that looked identical to our main one, filled with false data and decoy financial projections. We intentionally left a vulnerable digital backdoor open, knowing Victor's hired hackers would be drawn to it. That night, we watched in real time as they broke in. They took the bait, gleefully transferring the fake files, believing they were destroying our entire operation. But we were tracking their every keystroke, recording their IP addresses, and gathering digital evidence. Most importantly, they left a trail that led us directly to Victor's home computer, where we captured digital recordings of him authorizing the illegal hack, discussing the corporate espionage in explicit detail. It was multiple felonies, and we had it all on a pristine, unbreakable digital recording. The evidence was airtight. As the sun rose, casting a pale light over the city, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Emergency board meeting at Crane Tech scheduled for 9 a.m. The board had received the encrypted package we sent them. Victor's final, desperate, and illegal act was the last straw. The vote was swift and unanimous. Victor Crane was officially removed as CEO and stripped of all voting rights and authority within the company he had founded. We watched on a live financial news feed as a team of security guards and a stern-faced board member escorted him from the building. He looked pale, shrunken, and old, a hollow shell of the powerful, intimidating man who had fired me. My lawyer, Isabella, called minutes later, her voice buzzing with triumph. Amara, his removal for gross misconduct triggers a specific clause in the company's shareholder agreement. His entire block of shares is now available for immediate acquisition at a severely discounted market price. The board is desperate for stability and a clean break. They are ready to deal with us, and only us. It was really happening. The path to ownership was not just clear, it was paved and waiting for me. I took a deep, steadying breath and began preparing the formal offer. The company that was my prison was now a fortress waiting for its new queen. With Layla's substantial capital and the soaring, proven valuation of Coltech, we assembled an aggressive, all-cash bid. The board, desperate to avert total collapse and rehabilitate their image, accepted our offer immediately. We purchased 62% of Crane Tech, making us the undisputed majority owners. I was now the principal shareholder and chief executive officer. The press release went out, and the business world erupted. I walked into the Crane Tech headquarters for the first time as its owner. Employees lined the hallways, their faces a complex map of fear, curiosity, and a fragile, budding hope. As I stood in the grand lobby, taking in the surreal moment, the main glass doors burst open. Victor stormed in, his face a twisted mask of pure, undiluted rage. He pointed a shaking, accusatory finger at me. "You! This is a sham. A conspiracy. I built this company from nothing. You need to speak to me right now. You owe me that much." Security guards moved toward him, but I held up a hand, signaling them to wait. "It's okay," I said, my voice echoing calmly in the vast space. "Let him have his say." He screamed, he threatened lawsuits that would last for decades, he called me every name in the book. Then, his tone shifted to pleading, to begging, claiming he had a family to support, that I was ruining his life. Through the entire toxic torrent of words, I remained perfectly, utterly calm, my hands clasped loosely in front of me. When he was finally spent, his chest heaving, I slowly reached into my blazer pocket and pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen and played the audio recording from the day he fired me. His own voice, cold, arrogant, and clear, filled the silent lobby. Women like you don't make it far in this business. The people gathered in the lobby froze. Victor's face went a deathly white. You recorded me," he whispered, his voice cracking with disbelief. "I recorded the truth," I replied, my voice soft but carrying to every corner of the room. I gave a single, firm nod to the head of security. As they took his arms and firmly led him away, he stared back at me over his shoulder, his eyes wide with a profound, world-shattering disbelief. He shouted my name one last time, a raw, guttural sound, but it was swallowed by the definitive sound of the heavy glass doors closing behind him. It was finally, completely over. The real, hard work of rebuilding began immediately. I merged Coltech and Crane Tech into a new, forward-looking entity, Cole Crane Analytics. I spent weeks reviewing every department, rehiring the ethical, talented people Victor had purged, and decisively firing the managers who had enabled his abusive reign. I promoted Evan to Chief Operating Officer, my trusted second-in-command and the strategic mind who had been my rock through the entire war. The company's atmosphere began to transform, buzzing with a new, positive, and creative energy I had never felt within those walls before. At the end of our first official week, Evan came to my new, sunlit office. "Come with me," he said, a mysterious, excited smile playing on his lips. "I have something to show you. It can't wait." He led me out of the office and toward the bank of elevators. I was intrigued and curious. What could be so important that it couldn't wait until Monday morning? The elevator doors opened not onto a lobby, but onto the building's vast, empty rooftop. Or what should have been empty. The entire space was magically transformed, filled with thousands of twinkling fairy lights, overlooking the glittering tapestry of the city skyline at dusk. Our entire team was there, along with Zara and Layla, all smiling warmly. Evan led me to the center of the rooftop, where a small, elegant rug was laid out. He got down on one knee and took my hands in his. My heart leaped into my throat. "Amara," he began, his voice thick with emotion, but strong and clear. "I have watched you fight with more courage, grace, and sheer intelligence than anyone I have ever known. I always believed, from the first day I met you, that you were born to lead, not just a company, but a movement, a new way of thinking. I love you. Will you do me the incredible honor of marrying me? Tears of pure, unadulterated joy streamed down my face. This was a different kind of victory, a deeper, more personal one. Yes, I whispered, my voice cracking. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As we embraced, surrounded by the cheers of our found family, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A news alert flashed on the screen. Victor Crane arrested on multiple charges of corporate espionage, fraud, and extortion. Justice, at long last, had been served. A year later, Cole Crane Analytics was a recognized global leader, known as much for its ethical culture as for its innovative technology. From the ashes of my old pain, I launched the Unbroken Seed Global Scholarship Fund, dedicated to supporting and mentoring young women in tech from underserved communities across the world. The response was overwhelming, with thousands of applications pouring in. One day, amidst the usual corporate mail, I received a thick, handwritten letter. It was from a woman I had never met. She wrote that she had been a rising star at Crane Tech a decade ago, and that Victor had systematically destroyed her career after she rejected his persistent advances. She said that seeing me stand up to him, tell my truth, and ultimately win, had given her the courage to finally start the business she had always dreamed of. You saved my life, she wrote. Asterisk, you showed me that the monster could be beaten. Asterisk, her words meant more to me than any financial success or industry award ever could. A week later, a plain, unmarked cardboard package, postmarked from an unknown location, arrived on my desk. The label, printed in a generic font, sent a chill down my spine. Asterisk, the final piece. The truth about your firing. Asterisk. Inside the package, nestled in protective foam, was a small, silver external hard drive. With a sense of momentous gravity, I plugged it into my computer. It was the missing file, the complete, unaltered one Evan had tried to save the day I was fired. It contained not only my original, stellar performance reviews but also detailed system logs that proved Victor had used sophisticated, illegal surveillance software to monitor my work computer for months. The logs showed him remotely accessing my machine, manipulating my data, and methodically stealing my ideas and code long before he ever fired me. The evidence was incontrovertible. Everything he had built his empire upon was a magnificent lie, a gilded palace constructed on a foundation of stolen work and broken promises. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling glass wall of my office, the same office that had once been his. I looked out at my company, my team, my future, the city lights beginning to sparkle like diamonds in the twilight. I said the words I had waited years to utter, the words that held the weight of my entire journey. You told me I'd never make it. I didn't just make it, I own everything you thought I didn't deserve.